then me and Liam are also going to do like a side kind of episode here. That's going to be a separate thing. And we're going to go over two things. There's one really legendary and iconic driver that's, leaving us sadly. Cue the emotional music, Georgina, as the tears flood the room, But our
Let me get the
special
bucket
guest,
for you to collect all the tears.
yeah, and maybe a bucket of KFC too on Red Bill's bill. Thank you. But
I'm more of a McDonald's kind of guy, but that's just
all chicken shops are welcomed, and other chicken shops are available. But yes,
let's just go with Nando's, man.
Ooh, okay, George. See, hot, spicy, medium. Okay, I see you, Georgie. Anyway, we digress. Liam, man, like you've got a really cool affiliation with Aston Martin, and it's amazing to see F1 teams, like one giving the opportunities, obviously, to people like us to kind of get involved with the sport, the team, the drivers, but also, man, like you as well to work with them, because ultimately for Aston Martin, they've had history in the sport, and I'm sure you'll give us a history into their inclusion. But in this guise, Aston Martin are still a fairly new thing. So to get kind of like people like you to work with them is a pleasure for them, and something that they probably look forward to a lot because of the kind of market and the audience of people you would put them onto, man. So we need to big you up as well. But where I want to go to, Liam, is you had a really cool opportunity to interview, like literally. I was gonna say, I don't want to be like those guys that got memed the other day, so I'm gonna make sure I get it right. 4-time world champion Sebastian Vettel, at Aston Martin. What was that experience like? Because you did like an actual actual interview on your channel, which is out there. So make sure you guys go and follow and subscribe to Liam Talks Motorsport on the internet. But man, talk to us about that opportunity, and what's it like, speaking to Sebastian Vettel as a 4-time world champion, and just probably the most surprising thing that Seb said to you on that day.
I mean, it was absolutely mental. I've never when if you don't know already, I went through like a bout of massive anxiety attacks and depression a few years ago. I never thought that I would be where I am 3-4 years on. And Sebastian Vettel, like I said, he was like probably my idol before I started looking into all the stuff about old racing and stuff. So to interview him was just an incredible honor. And what surprised me most was, and obviously this isn't in the actual interview, but after we finished the interview, he actually, because my dad was there obviously, and my mum was as well, and we actually had a couple minutes of a conversation as well, because the guy who was with Seb was a guy called Matt Bishop, absolute legend. He was the whole reason why I managed to get to be in that incredible interview with Seb. And we just had a general conversation, and it was just really, really lovely. Seb's a really, really nice guy, and I wish him nothing but the best for the future, whether that be, climate, being a climate change activist, or, becoming a farmer like Jeremy Clarkson, but with his lovely bees, lovely bees, or, or if he just like settles down with his family, with his wife and his three children.
Absolutely. And talking about him as well there, Liam, he had quite an amazing run at Suzuka, didn't he? You could tell that it was quite an emotional week. He has lots. I mean, Seb has fans everywhere, for God's sake. But I mean, in Japan particularly, wow. Just like you could basically, I think Seb could run for like a Japanese prime minister over there. Like he genuinely get elected by the people. He's
or
a man of the people.
Or British Prime Minister here, he'd probably do a better job than Liz Truss anyway.
Yeah, from what we're seeing at the moment, I agree with you on that one for sure, Liam. It's true. But yeah, like he had that race, and what was your kind of thoughts just on this performance? Because he had a bit of a mistake at the beginning, but then he came back, he fought his way through the field, and he had that awesome final lap battle with Alonso as well. Could you talk about like your emotions and just kind of how you saw that one play out on the day?
I mean, my dad was watching it with me, and we're also really, really good. We love Seb. Obviously, I'm not biased in any way, shape, or form, but I was hoping he'd do well, and it's a shame we didn't get to see him and Alonso's last like battle play out because they were showing us like replays and stuff, and it was really annoying. But you know, the battle between him and Fernando was just amazing. Two of the drivers that I've watched for a long time and have been inspired by battling it out for. Well, so it was P6. It was still a really entertaining battle, and I was really happy when I found out you'd finished sixth. And you know what? Hats off to the Aston Martin strategy team because they did everything right to get him back into that points position. The way that they timed things was just perfect with the conditions changing from wets to inters. And that was how Latifi scored points as well. So hats off to the Williams team for that. People are forgetting that Latifi is no longer first place in a 20-car championship. So.
Yeah, exactly. And that in itself didn't seem like a thing that was ever gonna change with like the poor run of form he had. And I think the writing was on the wall when Nick de Vries came in that weekend and again showed what the Williams could do, even on the short's notice. So again, shout out to Latifi too. Like he's not going out like like a joker. He's actually trying to still do things and potentially line up a seat sometime in the future, because we never know what's gonna happen with these teams and their financial kind of backgrounds.
It's all about the money.
Exactly.
It's like when Vince McMahon's son is like going on to like the WWE thing, and Vince is just like his face is shocked, and it's just like the song money. His face, man. I mean, I've never been a fan of WWE, but that's just like so funny to me.
Man, that song as well is a banger, man. There's certain like theme songs in WWE which are they're just goated songs. Like you cannot go wrong with them at all, and they always get you hyped. So, oh man, I'm glad we can bond on that one too, Liam. It's amazing. Right. So let's tune into this final segment of the show that's gonna go as its own separate episode. Liam, we are gonna do our top 20 worst to first in terms of the drivers' performance this year. So, we're taking into account, like, how the drivers have done throughout the course of the year. We're trying to kind of match and see in what running order we can logically put them in. And, there's going to be loads of talking points on this one too, man. So, starting from the bottom, and now we're here, but starting from the bottom, in the great words of Drake, Liam, who is in last place for you in terms of the regular registered 20 drivers on the grid? Who's taking that last spot for you in terms of
it has got to be the incredible Canadian, the coffee merchant, the dad's money merchant that is Nicholas Latifi.
Yep, fair. Absolutely fair. And I guess I don't know how Georgina's going to chop this up, so people might just hear her saying, you got 9th place at Japan, not bad. But still, I mean, like, I think logically everybody, even the Go TV meme community, will have to kind of agree with us in terms of for like like Latifi, it hasn't clicked. And I don't think he's actually that bad. He's not the worst Formula One driver, which again, we actually did have a discussion about this on the earlier segments. So make sure you check that out. Of course.
The other Canadian, although he was literally born and raised in Britain, so I don't know why he represented.
Liam, we don't tell them that.
I'm trying to give England a bad rep, so when Scotland eventually run away from them, we can keep giving them a bad rep and eventually become a better country than them, and eventually take over them and become the Grand Masters of the United Kingdom. But
man, do you hear this, Jorgy? So I might not even be the regular guy from North London. I might be the regular guy from Dundee, or Aberdeen.
I was born in Dundee actually, so
see, there we go. So fair enough. I don't even think we need to spend too much time on Latifi because it's just been there, done that. I think if he goes into other series, which the speculation he could actually go into IndyCar, maybe he can revitalize his career. But in terms of F1, I think that sail is shipped, and the ship has sailed even back to front like Latifi on the grid. But I think that's fair. So let's go to number 19 then, Liam. I know this is gonna be a very controversial one. I'm gonna stick Sonoda in there, man. Like,
I disagree. Do you know what? I'm gonna be mad
Okay.
unpopular and do what Miles will really not like and put Daniel Ricciardo in 19th.
Whew.
He has
Okay.
had a terrible season. Like if you look at he's not had a very good season, but like he has had a nightmare of a season, and you know I would put him even like in front. I'd put him even behind Tsunoda or Mick Schumacher or anyone else who might be suggested to have had an absolutely dreadful season.
Yeah, I think I see it, to be fair, Liam. I don't think I wouldn't be against putting Ricardo there, although I think, the popularist out there on Twitter will say otherwise. But no, I think for a driver of his caliber, for him to not have a seat next season, and bear in mind, we can say all the stuff about, things at McLaren not being equal, or, maybe the mechanics giving Lando more priority. All of that aside, this is an 8, maybe even a 9-time Grand Prix winner. And because of his lack of performance this season, that's ultimately the reason why McLaren have decided to terminate his contract early and to invest in somebody that's still, an unproven entity in Formula One. In terms of other series of racing, of course, Piastri is going to be a star of the future, no doubt. But in terms of F1, I still think it's quite risky for McLaren to do that, although I think it's a good risk to take. So yeah, for Ricardo to be in this position, I think is fair. And to put in P19, I don't see anything really too bad about that. So I'll take that. Okay, P18.
I mean, last thing, Ricardo has only scored 22% as we're filming this anyway. I mean, obviously you've got the American Grand Prix coming up this weekend, but in terms of points scored this season, Ricardo has only scored 22% of McLaren's points this season. Like you can say all you want about how Lando's got the garage behind him rather than behind Daniel, but 22% is just something that you can't even like say that there's anything to defend that. You can't defend that.
True, and also just to kind of like add to that as well, Liam. Like people get onto Zach Brown, but if this was during the Ron Dennis era, would he accept that either?
No,
Hell no.
he would have been sacked and replaced. So, I mean, it's inexcusable, really. That's just my opinion.
True. No, I think it's a fair one. Like,
I mean,
rationalized it.
I mean, after the Suzuka race, Sebastian Vettel, who's in a car which is 7th fastest on the grid, is ahead of him in the driver's standings, having missed 2 races of the season.
For COVID.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's the sort of the final nail in the coffin for him. Being behind someone who not only missed 2 races, but is in a car which is quite inferior to his.
Yeah, it says a lot, doesn't it? It really does. No, I think that's fair. And cool. We'll move from Ricardo then. So 18th. I'm going to really try and push for Tsunoda here because I think in terms of expectations, he was supposed to do a lot better. He hasn't scored, Liam. Let me look at the thing here. He hasn't scored in Japan, Singapore, Italy, Netherlands, Belgium, Hungary.
Last time he scored was in Spain. He hasn't scored since Spain. So like he had a good like first third of the season, and then he disappeared off the face of the earth like Jimmy Hoffa in 1975. Only the people who've watched The Irishman will understand that reference, but you know.
Of course, but to actually not score in 12 races, there, Liam, that is not a great day at the office, and I think in a way, because Red Bull don't really have anybody really ready, I think if Vips minus the racism, or if even Liam Lawson,
Vips wasn't good enough even without the racism thing. He wasn't good enough even without the racism thing. And Lawson, I think if Lawson had a bit more luck this year, maybe he might have gotten the seat. I would argue the same thing with Jack Doohan and Alpine, because I think Jack Doohan, had he had a bit more luck on his side and had he not been a bit less of a wrecker, he'd probably be in that Alpine seat that next season. Personally speaking, I would have actually picked Doohan over Gasly. I'm going to be unpopular and say that because, but yeah, Tsunoda, he scored all of his points. He's only had 3-point scoring displays, and we're 18 races into the season. I mean, he didn't start in Saudi Arabia, but that was because of a mechanical problem. But even then, he was still starting from the back of the grid again because of a mechanical problem. But if you look at his pace, he still wouldn't have done very well. So
Yeah, and I think that's fair. Like it's just one of those ones where like he had a lot of crashes in his debut year, but you could see he had like that raw speed. So we were hoping that it'd mature a bit and he'd be a bit more consistent, but for whatever reason, it just hasn't worked out. So I think that's fair. And to kind of kick things on, P17, I'm gonna nominate Schumacher for this, given that in
yeah.
recent races, I think we've seen an upturn in performance because let's not lie about it, Liam. He kind of has to with Gunter Steiner sampling the market.
But
at the beginning of the season,
to defend Mick, in the last 4 performances, he's beat Kevin Magnussen twice. So and that's thing since I'd say Canada, he's been pretty much level footing with Magnussen. He's been very close to him in terms of performance. Since the Canadian Grand Prix, I'm pretty sure he scored more points than Magnussen has, and that's about halfway point of the season in terms of what we've had so far. So I think in terms of second half of the season, he's had a better second half of the season, and it's taken him a wee while to get used to the car. I think with Magnussen, he had that debut race, and that just sort of put Schumacher even more under pressure. But then you need to remember the Ocon incident, which may have actually costed him points. Even though he instantly pirouetted and got going again, he was behind Ocon and was behind him for the rest of the race. Ocon finished 7th and Schumacher finished 11th. So
true. And it's things like that as well, Liam. You're right. Like had he had that, start to the season, our complete like complexion on his performance might be completely different. But because that happened, and then we had the series of crashes in Jeddah, Monaco, and kind of like being completely off the pace in Azerbaijan as well, it's not put him kind of like in a safe position. But I mean, are there any other candidates you want to put probably lower than him at the moment?
I mean, that's the thing. Lance Stroll's had an all right season. He's not had a very good season. I think in terms of the next couple of drivers, you'd probably based on points, you'd probably put Zhou Guanyu there, but he's been a very unlucky driver. You have to keep in mind, and he is a rookie, and it's tricky that he's coming against Valtteri Bottas, who's one of the best drivers on the grid. But and also it doesn't help that Alfa Romeo car in the last 3, 4, 5 races has been very, very dodgy. So I don't think there's really anyone else. Stroll is like a contender for that, to be fair. Actually, yeah, I'd probably put Lance Stroll. I'm going to be unpopular and put Lance Stroll in 17th.
Okay. We could go for Stroll. I mean, again, like he's had a couple of decent races. I think for me, I remember the kind of cheeky one in France. Well, again, I'm not going to go into too much detail because I want Aston Martin and you to continue having the great partnership and relationship. But yeah, the kind of last lap battles he had with Seb around France was quite cool, but cheeky. So he's a guy where, again, like he's not been like at the front or even like I've never seen him like lead the midfield. But in terms of mistakes this year, I've not seen as many. So he's a driver to me which has matured a bit more, which is why I was willing to give him a bit more bail compared to Schumacher. But we could put Stroll there for P17.
Because that's the thing. Stroll, he's not made as many mistakes, and he's only had 2 retirements this season, and both of them were mechanical problems. But avoiding crashes doesn't necessarily mean that you're improving as a driver. I think he's not got the raw pace to be a Formula One driver at the moment. I think give him one more season in that Aston Martin, and if he doesn't improve, replace him with someone else like a Felipe Drugovich. Give Drugovich a chance, and if Drugovich doesn't do well, then replace him. So I would put him there, and then I would probably put Mick Schumacher, and then to be honest, it's probably a mix up of Joe Guan Yu and I can't really think of anyone else. To be honest,
Thinking Albon. That's like the Albon
maybe, but yeah, maybe I can sort of.
Magnussen.
Magnussen's had a. I think Magnussen's had a good season considering how slow the Haas has been. Because like 22 out of 34 of their points have been scored by him, and to be fair, since Canada, Haas have been the second slowest car. Them and AlphaTauri have been the bottom of the midfield, so it certainly hasn't helped their case out. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you'd put Albon or you put Joe or if you'd put Magnussen next.
I think how we'll do it. So we got Latifi P20, Ricardo P19, Sonoda P18, Stroll P17, Schumacher P16. I think it's fair to put Zhao there because although I think he's been more consistent and he's made less mistakes himself, he's just been unlucky. There have been times as well where like he's just been close to the top 10, but it hasn't fully come forward. But I'd definitely be interested in seeing him in Formula One for another season. I'm glad that finally Alfa Romeo have confirmed that extension for next year. So we can go Zhou P15. For P14 and 13, I'm just weighing it up whether we put Magnussen in P14 or whether we go with Albon. Because even with Albon, he's bounced again. He's another driver that's had time. In a way, both of them kind of have a similar story. They've both been out of Formula One for a year or two. They come in, they've kind of like dominated their teammates, and yeah, they've just been steady eddies. They haven't been setting the world on fire, but at the same time as well, as and when they can get a job done, they tend to do it. So.
Because that's the thing, Williams have almost like for almost every single race weekend, Williams have been the slowest car. So for Alex to have gotten 4 points is decent. But then you look at the attrition rates of each race. You wouldn't have got points in Melbourne had it not been for, first of all, a really good strategy, and second of all, Sainz not deciding to go full megalomaniac, and Max not having his retirement. And then you've got Miami. Gasly and Norris had their little incident, and Vettel collided with Schumacher, giving a chance for Albon to score points. But, he took those opportunities. He was there. Compared to Latifi anyway, he was there to take the opportunities. And then you had Spa, where he genuinely had good pace, but then you have Hamilton Alonso's incident as well as Bottas's. So, but then you can say the same thing about a lot of drivers this season, where they've been quite lucky. But it's just as I think Albon would be fair to put in P13. I think Magnussen should be 14th. So.
Yeah, we can do that. So let's put. I'm just kind of making a list on my phone as well. So
am I in my notes section.
So we've got Alvin and P13. Great. Okay. So then that leaves us with the other, remaining, almost like 13 drivers there.
Yeah, the entirety of the top 10, top 11 plus Gasly. That's who's left, I think.
Yeah,
so.
On the topical which. Where do we put Gasly?
Because AlphaTauri have been really bad this year, so I'd be tempted to put him in 11th probably. But
okay.
That's the thing. Seb's had a really good year. I think at this point it's just impossible. Max is obviously first. I'd say either Checo or Charles in second. It's quite tricky because Charles has had that abomination of a strategy team. And then, it's all on a platter. You got George and Lewis, Carlos, Lando's probably top 3 for me actually. But and then you've also got Fernando as well, who's had abominable luck compared to Esteban. So in terms of if we're talking raw speed, it's really tricky after Albon. So yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm gonna put Gasly in 12th, and I'm gonna put Seb in 11th because
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah.
yeah, because with Seb, I just think compared to like what he's had to go through and like two less races than Gasly, and on top of that, him just wanting to leave Formula One on a positive note, it just resonates with me better. And with Gasly, I was saying at the beginning of the year that this is the year he's gonna kick off. He's gonna, put his kind of like hat in the ring, in the event that Lewis did decide to retire. Like he try and like maybe see if he can get out of the Red Bull family and try and get into like one of the top three works teams. But if a seat became available at Ferrari or Mercedes today or tomorrow, Gasly's name's not ringing to me the same way it was ringing last year, when he had that great season. So for that reason, I'm going to put Gasly 12th, and then just for the reasons we mentioned as well, Vettel 11th, because, considering the stuff he's been through, and on top of that, him announcing his retirement, he's still showing signs of a driver, which isn't like, if he was to stay in the sport for a couple of years, I don't think we'd even like see any other like, kind of negative or adverse kind of like performance from him. He's always giving it's 100% all, and I just love his radio messages even when he doesn't get into Q2 or Q3, because you can tell he's still hungry, and you can tell that it means so much to him, to
Yeah.
maximize the performance and give back to all the guys in the factory.
Yeah. Vettel. Are you David Coulthard or Jonathan Legard, or what's going on there? Vettel. This isn't 2009, but yeah. I think 10th place is either gonna be, I'd say, it's tricky because you've got Lewis, Valtteri, Esteban, and maybe Carlos. Those are the sort of four people I'd put from 10th to second. The reason why I put Esteban there is because Fernando's had such a torrid time of it, and on raw pace, Fernando's been quicker than Esteban. So it's really tricky. For 10th, I'd put Valtteri though. That's just my
I
opinion.
was literally gonna say that too. I think the easier one to kind of get into the top 10 would be Valtteri, because again, like when and I don't think it's so much him. I just think it's Alfa Romeo and the development of the car. We knew at the beginning of the season that Alfa Romeo came with this car, and it literally met the weight limit, the minimum weight limit. So it was one of the lightest cars in the grid, and they had that advantage. But then, throughout the season, they've talked about having to be careful, having to repatch front wings, and not going crazy to try and meet the cost cap budget. And that performance and this the Alfa Romeo seems its performance is kind of plateaued. So for Valtteri, I think he's done an amazing job. He's proven to people on occasions why he's one of the fastest guys still on the grid. But in terms of the machinery, I think that's probably the best he can get. So I'm happy
Yeah,
to kind of put.
since Canada, he's not scored any points. All 46 of his points came in the first 9 races of the year. So that's exactly the halfway stage of where we're at the moment. And since the summer break, he's not scored any points. Since even the British Grand Prix, he's not scored any points. So I think it's fair to put him in 10th.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable as well, and more than happy to go for that shout too. So then going kind of deep then into P9 onwards, because I actually want to give it to Ocon, to be honest.
I was gonna say either Esteban or Carlos, probably. I'd say Esteban, yeah.
But then again, I don't know if Ocon should be ahead of Fernando, because the thing I will give Ocon, Liam, is that I think with Ocon, people had said, Fernando Alonso had kind of his number in the season before. Although, to be fair, Ocon got that win at Hungary. And I think this year he's responded to the critics in a positive way. He's kind of showed his mettle, and in wheel-to-wheel kind of like combat with Fernando Alonso, he hasn't yielded. And I remember that awesome battle we saw in Jeddah earlier on in the year, where the two of them were going like hammer and nail, for track position. And then even in Hungary, whilst I don't think it was the best decision for the team, and I definitely think he riled up Fernando Alonso the wrong way that day, just to see like Ocon, taking kind of like the team lead role and kind of sticking it to Alonso, he scores a couple of brownie points for me, man. Like, and he's just been there or thereabouts. When the Alpine can be competitive, he does what he needs to do. So It's tough, man.
It is tough because, like, if you keep track of like how many points Fernando lost through retirements and Esteban lost through retirements, it's pretty close between the two of them. I think in terms of like how close driver pairings are in the grid, they're probably like the closest driver pairing, ahead of Lewis and George. So it's really tricky to pick which one of them goes next between the two of them. If you had to pick an Alpine driver, obviously, which is seeming to be the case. So it's tricky because, you know, Esteban had that brilliant drive in Japan. He had the brilliant performance in Austria where he was battling with the Haas's and Lewis. And but then again, you've got Fernando's performances in Canada and also at Spa where he managed to finish fifth despite the first lap collision he had with Lewis.
With Lewis, yeah.
Because
I
that's
think I'm gonna go with. Alonso P9.
Interesting. Okay.
And
do we go with Esteban? I think either Esteban or Carlos P8 is probably what I would go with, because Carlos is 50 points behind his teammate in the driver's standings, 50 points. You know that is, I mean, the only driver that's probably in terms of like gaps further behind his teammate is Ricardo Tenores and Latifi to Albon. So
true.
I'd say,
True.
but then again, you've got the DNF scale. Carlos has had like 5 retirements. Charles had 3, but then again, you had a couple of Carlos's retirements were his own fault. For example, the Australia incident
and Imola as well. But then again, you could be forgiven for like what happened to him in Baku when it just went up into Pluma Spoke, and even to be fair as well in Austria when
he
would have just had.
He would have finished second in Austria if his engine didn't decide to self-destruct like Ferrari in 2020. But it's a tricky one. Is it Esteban or
you know
Carlos?
what? I'm gonna put. I think I'm gonna put. Yeah, I'm gonna put Sainz 8th. I'm gonna put Ocon 7th, only because with Sainz, the only standout moment was like, yes, mate, like that was awesome. Was Silverstone, and even then,
I was there by the way.
Just
I was there by the way, Bragg. I was there.
Oh man, rub it in, man. Like that was such a race.
Up close as well. Like I was because like general admission isn't as good as it used to be, where you could get access to like the Luffield sort of bit. We had to stand at the just like in between like the corner entrance at Brooklands to Luffield, like in between there, and just seeing them up close is just incredible. So yeah. Quick story.
Absolutely not, and I love it as well, man, because there's a lot of us that, you know, don't get the chance to experience it. So even just to get from your perspective as well, Liam, is super cool, you know. And yeah, just like that race was crazy, but even then, for Sainz's perspective, it created like a lot of weird vibes because he had won his first race, but the Ferrari mechanics didn't really seem too bothered because it was Charles who they wanted to win,
and also
Charles.
And also in the previous race in Canada, he probably should have won. I remember someone put out a really, really outlandish claim, which was that Gasly would have won that race. I disagree with that, but I think after Canada, people were starting to become impatient with him and start to realize, okay, maybe he's not good enough. But I think with Carlos, the Silverstone performance was brilliant, but if Ferrari hadn't cocked up with Charles, he wouldn't have won the race. He'd have finished second, which would have been still pretty good. But I think in terms of his consistency since the summer break, he's just dropped off. A bit like Valtteri has.
Absolutely, you know, and I think it's maybe it's a motivation thing. Maybe it's that he's just accepted that this year it's not going to be that year. But I hope that, you know, you can come back next year, find more strength, find, like more, just like, just more of that edge, at the beginning of the season. So at least, we're not kind of saying with 4 races to go that, the whole championship's wrapped up and done. But no, I think it's an interesting one. So we'll put Sainz 8th then, Ocon 7th. I think the next kind of easy one would then be Norris, no? P6. Because you want to push him higher?
I think I'm gonna be really unpopular and say, well, nah, because Lewis is a little bit behind George, but he had a bit worse luck. I mean, quick story. When I applied to Formula Nerds, they actually told me to write an article on Lewis, and my article was really good, so that's how I ended up working for them. So I guess Lewis's bad luck gave me good luck. If you like, so it's tricky. Lando or Lewis is next. It's tricky.
Well, actually, I mean, maybe even Russell, to be honest, because even Russell, like with him, like
blimey, mate.
blimey, crikey, like he's come in, and don't get me wrong, he's done a really good job to settle in at Mercedes, to be on pace with Lewis on most days, and to get a result for the team where he can. But there's just that kind of rash side to him still. Like there was the Silverstone thing, which
the consistency that he had in the first half of the season was mad though. And to be fair to him, Silverstone wasn't really his fault. It was Gasly's fault, because Gasly turned into George, because I need to find the clip. I swear I still think that's Gasly's fault for what happened, but that's just my opinion. And what George did afterwards was brilliant. To help Joe.
Yeah, the sportsmanship to go up to Jorgy'S as well. Absolutely, we can't take that away from him either.
I mean, compared to what he did with Valtteri
before, yeah, that was a bit of a sticky one in Imola. That was a dark day, but no, I mean, he still got that kind of thing though, Liam. Because again, even though I think the FIA were kind of harsh for this one too, he kind of did cause, or was partially to blame for the issue with him and Perez at Red Bull Ring as well in Austria. Then on top of that too, he just yeeted Mick Schumacher out of the way at what was it, Singapore recently too. And then even just some of his decisions, or some of the stuff he tries to do in qualifying, like trying to go out at Canada, like, on dry tires, like on a wet track. I'm like, mate, you're not Jenson Button, He tries to do the same thing again, like pretty much at Silverstone. It didn't work out for him, which is also, whilst maybe Gasly moved in that kind of thing that pinched Jorgy'S.
Actually, I've looked at the replay now. It is George's fault, because there's a bit of racing track on the side. George cut in when he probably could have left a bit more space for him. Yeah, like there's a good like 3, 4, 5 meters on the right. If George had gone to the right, a bit more to the right, then he probably would have lost position to both Joe and to Gasly, but he wouldn't have caused a massive crash, which nearly, let's be honest, without the halo, would have incapacitated a driver. So I agree that he can be still quite rash. So I think it would be fair to put him there, but then you've also got Lando having a really good Lando having a good season, even like more puts George a bit further back. And then you've also got Lewis having really bad luck as well, and him having that really good run of podiums when George was a bit off the pace compared to him. From Canada through to Spa, Lewis was way ahead of George. I mean, despite George getting pole in Hungary, the pace Lewis had there was incredible. I mean, you would expect that considering he's won around there 8 times, but still.
And also the DRS failure he had in qualifying too, which kind of took away. We talk about bad luck for Lewis. His luck was really rancid at parts of the season. But that comes with being the leader of the team.
He probably could have got pole. But I think it's the first time ever that at the halfway point of the season, Lewis is behind a teammate. Even when he was racing against Alonso, like Miles mentioned earlier, he was ahead of him. So it's the first time, and that's the thing. Some people will say, "Oh, maybe it's because Lewis is beginning to hit his ceiling as a driver." But I don't think that. I still think that we've still got a lot left with Lewis. I think he can still beat Schumacher's world championships, the amount of world championships he has. But we'll see.
Yeah, I think that's fair as well, Liam. And yeah, so, all right. So we'll put Russell in P6 then, and then
Did we go? Did we go with Lewis or Lando?
Or even Checo, because there's been times where Checo has been outstanding and actually really impressive. If you look at Jeddah or if you look at Monaco, and then obviously on a day where Max had his kind of like thing, like Perez is the guy that picked up the pieces for Red Bull in Singapore. But there are other times as well where just like he's just nowhere to be seen. So
I mean, that's the thing. You could argue that any of the drivers from like 2nd to 7th could be anywhere, because Charles has been a bit mixed as well. He's had his fair share of bad races, Imola, Hungary, Spa. But then again, some of that you could say is down to the slow pace of the Ferrari and the bad strategies. And then you've got the massive, what's the best way of putting it? The massive oops that was Paul Ricard, where he was leading quite comfortably as well, and ended up winning it from the lead under, well, I say no pressure, but the Ferrari, obviously you're constantly under pressure in Formula One, so you could argue any of them really. It's tricky.
Yeah, it is. And I think how I would do it is Norris P5, because I think there's nothing more you could really ask of Norris in terms of what he's doing with that McLaren and where it is. But at the same time as well, you always just want a bit more. And there've been times where, to be fair, the Alpines have had Norris's number. I remember in Paul Ricard, for example, where Alonso was doing his usual tactic of just being Alonso and just trying to back up the McLarens to, like stress their tires out and play mind games with them. And
I mean, Lando still beat Esteban in that race, though. So
true. And then there are other occasions as well. I'm just thinking, like, even just like in Baku, where to me, just Ricciardo was the faster driver that weekend, and I don't know, for Norris, it didn't really go down too well. I know he was on the team saying, yo, change these positions now, please. And the team were like, about that, Lando, no.
Daniel Ricciardo's a bit of a Baku merchant. I said it.
True. Except from that, yeah, he basically, turned 2 Red Bulls into 1 as he completely power drive into Max going into turn 1.
I haven't seen an explosion that bad since the archive footage of Hiroshima.
Jeez, you went there, Liam. You went there. But no, it's true. That was yeah, as a Mercedes fan, loved it. But I can imagine for most Red Bull fans, just another awkward dark day. Yeah,
and then there was just me as a Ferrari fan watching Seb lock up into turn 1 and then seeing Valtteri get the puncture, and I was just like, not this again, Seb, not this again. And then later on in the season, my heart was broken again at Hockenheim. Why did it have to rain?
Oh man, yeah, that moment was bittersweet for a lot of people around the world.
And then you just went spin galore. It was literally the definition of the Dead or Alive song. Or if you're new when it comes to music and not a fan of the 80s like I am, the Kesha and was it Flo Rida song? So,
hey, that works too. Other kind of musical choices are out there too, but I love the 80s, so we'll stick with that as well. And Bon Jovi, Dead or Alive, great song. But Liam, man, we're gonna have to make a decision here, man. So I'm gonna throw Norris 5th. Actually,
Russell,
it's either Perez.
And then is it Norris or is it Perez or is it Charles or is it Lewis? Because that's the thing. I feel like a little bit of bias is coming through there with the whole Hamilton thing. But
man, you know, my boy Lewis has to get a podium, and it has to be in this ranking. But Yeah, like has Lewis been more
All I'm
impressive
saying,
than
right? I've not been biased for the Aston Martin drivers, okay? And I
true,
am literal, and I've literally done content for them. So
true, true.
I
But
was,
I can
I was,
rationalize it. I can
I
rationalize it,
was
Liam, because in
brutal with Stroll. I
Mercedes.
put him 17th. About half the other
Hey,
people
I
who
didn't
worked
tell him
there.
to put you. I didn't tell you to put him there, bro. I was rooting for my boy Stroh in the LP's conversation earlier. I did my Stroh propaganda. But yeah, like
uh,
how I would rationalize it is Norris P5. I think like if he was in a better car, maybe we could like see where he would mix in the kind of like top three teams fight. But because he's not in the top three team at the moment, he's literally the winner of Formula B right now. I don't think anybody
Formula
could be too mad.
1.5, yeah, and I mean,
Exactly.
23 points in 4 races. Lando would need to retire from every other race, and Esteban would have to finish 6th to even have a chance at beating him. And then, of course, you've got the added caveat of Fernando, Seb, Valtteri. I mean, dare I say it? God willing, Daniel Ricciardo. I mean that'll happen. I mean, there's probably more chance of Santa knocking on my door right now. Sorry to all the little kids watching. Santa ain't real.
Santa's real. Santa's real. I'll just put that out there. Santa is real. Oh, and he kind of does look a bit like Kimi Räikkönen. But anyway, that's besides the point.
Kimmy's gonna be knocking on your door wanting that ice cream.
Of course. Hey, you see, it matches up as well. Ice cream, cold time of the year.
Don't give him mince pies. Give him ice cream.
Exactly.
I mean, to be fair, when he gets back to the North Pole, he'll probably have unlimited ice creams because the North Pole is literally ice all over. But
See, infinite supply, it works for Kimi. Come on, man. You can't say that retiring wasn't the best thing he did.
I mean, the only thing I want an infinite supply of is Iron Brew, but that's my choice.
That's the best. Why did you do that, Leo? Man, that's like one of my favorite drinks as well.
I love Iron Brew. I love it. Like Iron Brew is love. Iron Brew is life. Best thing to come out of Scotland, apart from the computer, the phone. No, the computer. The computer was Alan Turing. Sorry, he was half Scottish. But anyway,
Claim.
the television, the telephone.
Not Paul the Rester.
The greatest economists of all time, and Carnegie and Smith. There's a lot of things good to come out of Scotland, more than England anyway. I was thinking to myself in the shower, what has come out of England apart from William Shakespeare and an old lady called Liz. So
hey, respect to the Queen. Oh, okay, we'll leave that one.
She died on my birthday. I had to find out while I was in the middle of eating my pizza, surrounded by my girlfriend, my little brother, and my parents. And then I literally just turned to them and just said, "It's happened," and they just knew instantly.
Did you have pineapple with that pizza, by the way, Liam?
No, that is an absolute atrocity. Anyone who has pineapple on pizza should be sent to the gulag. They should be gulagged like the average Call of Duty Warzone player.
I'm glad you said that, Liam, because like George is an advocate for it. So now you're finally in my camp. No pineapple on pizza.
I'm sorry, Georgie. I massively disagree with you on pineapple on pizza's good. I massively disagree with you on that. You cannot put a fruit on a pizza. That's just criminal, because that defeats the whole point of a pizza, which is to be tasty but slightly unhealthy.
Wait till you hear from Ben Hunt.
Especially for those who are lactose intolerant.
Hey, fair point. I can't. You see how you rationalize? I like that, Liam. Yeah, like you got to put the lactose intolerant people in there too.
Yeah, you can't just like I'm part of a minority. I'm in the neurodiverse minority, and you got to appreciate all the other minorities. You got the lactose intolerant, those who have what's the thing called where you struggle to read and write as well. What's that called again? Dick and Dom have it.
Dyslexia.
That's it. Don't forget about the minorities, people. And love people no matter who they are, just as long as they're not Adolf Hitler, Benito Mussolini, Joseph Stalin, or Mahatma Gandhi, because he was a massive racist and was a bit of a weird fella. I'm not actually kidding
Facts.
with that.
Facts. Either way, bringing it back to Formula One, Liam. So we ended on Norris. So that's P5. I'm gonna say Perez P4, Lewis
Yeah.
P3,
Nah,
Charles P2.
you're just wanting Lewis on the podium. You're wanting Lewis on
Man,
the
but I have my
podium,
reasons because my
mate.
reason is for this is we know the W13's been a wheelbarrow. Okay, that's just evident. But
Well,
to still see,
up until the summer break. Since summer break, it's been up and down. George got pole in Hungary. Lewis had like 5 straight podiums. Sorry. I think the W13. I mean, since Monaco, it's been up from there.
true, but in terms of the pedigree, Liam, in terms of we're talking about W11 terms of form. This W13 is a mere.
I just clocked something from Azerbaijan all the way to Monza. In fact, not even Monza. All the way up until Singapore, Mercedes had a minimum one driver on the podium. Ferrari didn't have either driver on the podium in multiple races of those races, despite having a much better car. So, I mean, you can claim that the W13 has been a wheelbarrow compared to past iterations of the Mercedes. It's been bad, but it's not as bad as the 2011 or the 2010 or even the 2012 car. So,
Sure. I'll give you that, Liam. But the kind of point I was gonna make in why I'd rationalize putting Lewis over Perez is in terms of Lewis versus his teammate, him and Russell have been pretty close and neck to neck, and pretty much doing the best they can do with that car. Whereas with Sergio, I think we've seen glimpses of him wanting to kind of show his stocks and wanting to kind of be on the same level as Max. And we talked about we had the performance in Spain, the win in Monaco, which was really emotional for him, even though he cheated on his girlfriend Georgie. And then again also kind of stuff we've seen in other places. But then you can't get beat by your teammate by half a minute that basically had to start outside of the top 8 around Spa or get absolutely obliterated around Monza. Like in terms of his comparisons to Max, he's just been nowhere near the races.
Did you say half a minute in Spa?
Yeah,
It was 18 seconds.
It was 80. Oh, okay. So maybe an exaggeration there, but still.
And also, like Checo's been absolutely. I mean, he couldn't be more. The only thing that could be worse is him being ousted from Red Bull. They've practically just left him in the dirt. They designed that car for Max. It's a bit like I don't know if you watch motorbikes, but in MotoGP in the past 5 years, 2 teams, Yamaha and Honda, have designed a bike solely for their number 1 rider. And every single other rider, the only other 2 riders, there have only been 2 riders, barring the ones that they were designed for, that did well with those bikes. The rest of them all did terrible, including world champions. So I compare that to that, and I think if the car wasn't designed for Max, Checo would probably be a lot closer than 113 points behind.
Well, that's one way of looking at it as well, Liam. And I definitely take your points there too. But having said that, the fastest drivers get the fastest cars. And it's so reflective of Michael Schumacher compared to Rubens Barrichello. Similar thing with Red Bull and Sebastian Vettel compared to Mark Webber.
I mean, to be fair to Mark, he bottled that championship in 2010. If he hadn't bottled that championship in 2010 by crashing inside that in Korea, then things might have been different. But
wasn't he sick? Wasn't that the race where he got sick in his helmet though?
I don't actually know. I will go and Google that right now.
You too.
Stall for me, please. Stall for me.
I will. But either way, whilst I'm making my propaganda, I think it's fair. I would give Lewis it just for the entertainment he's given us this season. The kind of the way he's we talked about Seb bouncing back from COVID. Lewis bounced back from a championship, arguably being robbed from him, and coming back into a team which hadn't had this car kind of where it should be, and then on top of that as well, having to take some of the stick as well and take some of the more experimental setups as they try to figure out what's going wrong with it, and he's just been a leader and he's been really, really amazing with George. He's still been amazing with the press. He's had to deal with the FIA on his nuts, in relation to the whole pants and jewelry situation too, and he's just kind of been composed and really, really measured about it. So in relation to that, I've been more impressed with him versus, like George, for example, compared to how Sergio's been with Max.
It
Where
was
like,
it was 2007 Japan where Mark Webber was sick. I just googled it.
okay,
Mark Webber sick during race, and it comes up with it was Fuji 2007. I'm just gonna watch the video now. Classic Team Radio. Webber vomit. I love how they say Classic Team Radio. Like I threw up. Gonna
hey,
retire. I've got vomiting going on. I'm vomiting. I can't drive. Understood. Box. I'll try and stay out, mate. I am being sick in the car, but I'll see how I go. That's what he said. That's what he said.
true Aussie grit there, Liam. True Aussie grit. But
Indeed.
yeah, I mean, you know what I'll say? Yeah, my top 5 would be Max, Charles, Lewis, Perez, Norris. Max, he's done what he needed to do. I know that there's all this stuff kind of happening off the track, which, we have to have another episode on when more news comes out on that. But in terms of doing the job and getting it done, can't take it away from him. Charles, I really was rooting for him, and I think there's certain races where he kind of outsmarted Max, and he was playing the DRS chicken in Bahrain, for example, and you're showing heart in Red Bull's home race, at the Red Bull Ring, and overtaking Max like 4 times, albeit on a different tire delta, but then the mistakes that creeped in here and there as well, and then plagued by some really terrible reliability. So I'll put him second. Lewis, like I said, I think with what he's been given. Hey, we're biased podcast. I'll put that out there too on the streets. But yeah, Lewis has done an amazing job, done the most he can do with the tools he's been given at his disposal, and he's been a great leader to the team, a great teacher to George Russell. On top of that as well, getting P2, getting P3s. George has done the same too, but then less consistently. So you could put that forward as well. Perez P4, because again, I think he's definitely gelled into the Red Bull mold a lot more. There's definitely a lot of question marks into what opportunities they give him as to whether or not it's equal car compared to Max. Most likely not, but again, don't want to get sued for defamation. But yeah, when he can be there, he will be there. But there have been other times as well he's just not been in it at all. And I think Hungary was an example of that too, where again, started ahead of Max, ended behind Max. Max did a 360, almost like a 360 no scope on Call of Duty. He still managed to finish ahead of Perez. So
speaking of Call of Duty, I have a question for you. Out of all the drivers on the grid, apart from Latifi, who would you send to the gulag? Who would you gulag?
Ooh, who would I send to
the gulag? Who has absolutely frauded a seat in Formula One?
It's hard to say. It's really hard to say, Liam, because I was saying this the other day. Next year, we're actually gonna have a grid that doesn't consist of traditional pay drivers, in the sense of pay drivers that run there.
Apart from Lancey, of course, but
which even Lance, he's achieved more than a lot of drivers have achieved. He's got multiple podiums.
Yeah,
pole position.
But then again, that Racing Point was literally a carbon copy of the Mercedes, and also Checo finished some 50. I don't know if it was 50 points or not, but he finished a ridiculous amount ahead of him. Checo was 4th, meanwhile Lance was 9th. Lance got 75 points. Checo got 125. It was exactly 50 points. I am a prophet.
You are indeed, Liam. But fair. I'll give you that one. But still, Lance had some exceptional races in that season. The pole lap he did in Turkey is not talked about enough for me. And even if you take away the pink Mercedes stuff, the guy got a podium in a Williams around Baku. So, he's achieved more in Formula One than Hulkenberg has. I know that's a controversial one, but it's the truth, if you look at,
I mean 2012 Brazil. I mean, to be fair to Nico, he has had a bit of bad luck. But then again, has Lance Stroll won the 24-hour Le Mans or won the GP2 series? I don't think
you put him in a Toyota. If you put that guy in a Toyota that's OP compared to every other LMP1 in that class, I'm sure you do a decent job of it.
Correction, hypercar.
Hey, true. Well, even with that, it's going crazy as well, Liam, because they're going to change it up to LMDH and there's all sorts of...
And actually, to be fair, if you put him in the current Toyota, he might not actually win, Because if you look at the driver standings, Alpine have the same amount of points as one of the Toyota entries, which is tied for first. So
Ooh.
So you could have a championship battle on there heading into the final round in Bahrain, which I'm probably not going to watch because I do not watch endurance racing as such. It is on the 12th of November, so just less than a month away.
Cheeky plug. Love to see it. Either way, Liam, man, we have to kind of like think. So I'm saying this is going to be my list then. Max first, second Charles Leclerc, third Lewis Hamilton, fourth Perez, fifth Norris, sixth Russell, seventh Ocon, eighth Sainz, ninth Alonso, 10th Valtteri Bottas, 11th, the legendary man himself, SV5, Sebastian Vettel,
Yes.
12th Gasly, 13th Albon, 14th the Danish Viking Magnussen, 15th Zhou Yu, 16th Mick Schumacher, 17th Stroll on pole, 18th Yuki Tsunoda, 19th Ricardo, and 20th
Go
Latifi.
Tiffy!
In an honorable last place. But yeah, how about you, man? Like, what would your thing then be?
I mean, I agree with you on most of the drivers on the list. I'm gonna be really unpopular and say I'd swap Charles and Checo around and put Lando a bit further up. I think not Lando, sorry. I probably would have put Valtteri further up. It's a really tricky list because there's two different ways of putting it. You could put on you could combine like car and driver, or you could just go on raw driver performance. And if you go on raw driver performance, you need to look at all kinds of things like the pace of the cars per race, like the average gaps between first and last and whatever. And it's a really, really long procedure, but we don't have the facilities for that, big man. As who said that? I don't know who it was.
I think it's Michael Dapper. Michael Dapper.
Whoever it was that said that. We don't have the facilities for that, big man. So yeah. I can't put on I can't put on a North London accent, but to finish off, all I'm gonna say is Man United are bigger than the whole of London. We just beat Spurs 2-0. Ha ha ha.
Ooh, spice. Love to see it on the Stripping the Dipping channel. But
Glory,
Liam, man, as well.
United.
Again, that's another kind of one which is going to be interesting to see how it plays out throughout the season. But again, Liam, man, you've been an amazing guest, man. Just like your knowledge, just your views, your takes, just the work you've done as well, man. It's inspiring. And the note I kind of like to leave on as well, Liam, with you is just like, what advice do you have, for the people out there that want to go into like content creation in the F1 sphere, and do you have any other interesting or, like intriguing projects that we can look forward to in the upcoming weeks, months, or in imminent future?
I mean, to be honest, there's not really much advice I'd really give, to be honest. I mean, if you're looking for advice, do not ask me. I mean, I haven't uploaded videos in more than a month. I'm really busy. I mean, to be honest, what I would say is that you need to be a bit more committed than I am, because that's the thing. If I committed to YouTube, I'd probably have been on 1,000 subscribers by now, and I probably would have been able to probably make a bit of money from it. But you know what? It's not all about money. I can't really give you any advice, to be honest, because there's not really much I can really say.
I'll step in for you, Liam, because I think you're underselling yourself, man. Like I'll be a wingman here and say that like honestly, like you've taken such an interest in Formula One, and unlike most of us that would just sit around and say, yeah, well, I like Formula One, and that's basically it. You really realized, your visions and ambitions, to get into journalism, to get into writing, and it's not like, like your dad owns a Formula One team or, that you've had immediate, like everything you've done it on your own back, man. And I think that is so impressive and commendable to you in terms of the stuff that you've done, stuff that you've achieved, stuff that you've worked on, and even more that's going to come in the future as well, man. So yeah, I mean, of course, we can all be more consistent. I think all of us can have that kind of like goal in life to be more consistent and to try and do more. But when you're a full-time student and you still find time, to make amazing content and to go and do your research and to be so knowledgeable on areas which a lot of us, still need to learn about, it's really, really commendable, man. So huge shout out to you, big respect to you. And
Thanks.
as you wrap up this podcast, Liam, like where can our amazing viewers find you and where can they subscribe to your channel? and so forth as well, man.
So my almost inactive YouTube channel is Liam Talks Motorsport. I would get the full link up, but it's a long and complicated link. So if you're interested in links, it is https. It's just youtube.com/channel/ capital U, capital C, capital Q, capital V, capital W, lowercase w, lowercase l, capital R, capital X, lowercase g, lowercase v. I can't be bothered. Nah, I'm done with this.
Well, to make it easier for the viewers, as we do anyway with all of our amazing legendary guests, Georgina will do the honors of putting all the links to our special guests and, Liam and also Miles earlier on from this segment of recordings in the description and in the tweet that goes live as well with this episode. So make sure you go and subscribe to Liam and Miles as well, and you guys give them the love and also appreciation. And, again, engage with us too. Who is your top 20 list? Do you agree with what we said? Would you change the order differently too? Let us know, because at the end of the day, all we've said is our opinions, and everyone is entitled to their opinions. So, yeah, but Liam, any final words?
I mean, on Twitter, it's at Liam Talks Motorsport. That's not really a tricky link. It's just twitter.com/Talks Motorsport. And also go follow Miles. Go follow the podcast, the Stripping the Dipping podcast, and also I don't really shout out many people, but shout out to Matt Bishop as well. Go follow him at the Bish F1, because without him, I probably wouldn't be talking right now.
Oh, well, again, amazing. Love to show love. And Matt Bishop's such an amazing guy as well. Hopefully, at some point, we can have him on the podcast, and also just get more insight into the world of F1 from so many different angles and perspectives, because that is what this channel is. And this is what this channel's, USP is. It's unique selling point, because we like to sell. But anyway, guys, it's been a legendary episode. So make sure that you like, share, subscribe as always, show support as always as you do. And yeah, we'll definitely have Liam and Miles back on future episodes. So make sure you stay tuned and look forward to that as well. And yeah, Liam, thank you so much, man. You've been literally our star of the day, man. Like, we're so honored to have you. And again, just keep up the amazing work you're doing, man.
Yeah, it's been great to be on here. Thank you very much.
No worries at all, man. Honestly, anytime, we're more than welcome to come back onto this podcast. We want to hear more of your stories and more interesting, like unknown kind of facts that we, the world of F1 and our community need to learn. And always, man, it's a pleasure.
I was actually considering doing something like YouTube shorts about like facts about F1, but to be honest, I don't have the time for it and the willpower to do it. But yeah.
Well, come on, man. Maybe when you get some time, or maybe when there's some more holidays, consider it, because I would love it, and I'm sure our listeners will as well, man. So keep it in mind, because I think you'd be the perfect person for that, and it'd be great just to see some more content with your name attached to it, and of course, F1 nerds as well, and all the other things that you do too. It's just great, and an extension of the amazing work you do as well, man. So huge shout out to you. You're brilliant. But yeah, guys, it's been your boy AMG Denz, and on this episode of Stripping the Dipping, I'm out. Peace.